All right. I got to admit, it does feel weird getting back to some sense of normalcy in the classrooms. I feel like it has been forever since we've had a normal day of class. I'm glad to get back at it. All right. We are going to start out with the weather instruments. There is a small portion of weather that I have skipped because it is no longer tested. I am still going to go back and teach it, because in teaching it, there are some very cool things that I do not want us to miss. I do not want us to miss talking about. And I'll be honest with you, a lot of it is still very important, because when we look at the layers of the atmosphere, there are things that happen in each layer that are important. It just will not be something that is tested and quizzed, so I will not spend a week on it like I used to. We will spend one day, if that, and we will go over it very quickly. But today, as you can tell from our Fast and Curious, we are going to talk about weather instruments. And the reason why I need you to know what the weather instruments are, I need you to know what they are, I need you to know what they do, and the reason why I need you to do all of that is so that you can use them to interpret what's going to happen with the weather outside. Yes, you're going to sound like your grandpa and your dad talking about the weather all the time, but that's fine. It is extremely interesting. And I'll be honest with you, it's kind of wild when you can look at what's going on by yourself and kind of understand and predict what the weather's about to do. I know I talked to some of you back before some of this snow hit us, and we were talking about how the cold air was coming from above us and how the warm air with all of the moisture in it was coming from the south. And we said if that typically when that happens, we get a lot of snow. It's just interesting to kind of know those kind of things. But again, weather instruments, how to use them, how to predict the weather, because that's going to be something that's very, very important as we move on. All right, we are going to start with what I think is the easiest of the weather instruments. I have no idea what that spinning in the middle is. Maybe it's just waiting for the thing in the middle to work. We're going to talk about a thermometer, probably the easiest of all of the weather instruments. Who knows what a thermometer does? It measures the temperature, right? How much heat or lack of heat you might have outside would be a thermometer. So a thermometer measures the air temperature. It measures the air temperature. Now, this is a part of the thermometer that you should understand, because we talked about when things heat up and when things cool down. What happens to most things when you heat them up? What happens to things when you heat them up? They expand. So you've got this liquid. It's not water, because we'll talk about why it's not water, but there's this red liquid inside of this tube. And there's like the bigger ball at the bottom of a thermometer, right? It gets hot. What happens to the molecules? They move further and further apart, so that pushes the thermometer up because the liquid is expanding inside of that little tube. Now, the reason why there's not water inside of this tube, what does water do when it gets cold, and especially when it freezes, Lucy? It turns into ice, but what does it do? What does water do when it gets cold? It's a little different than most other things. It actually expands when it gets cold and freezes as well. If you put water inside of these tubes with not a lot of room to move and it expands too much, guess what would happen? It would break. So they put usually like this red like alcohol mixture inside of those thermometers. And when it gets cold, the molecules slow down and get closer and closer. And then you'll see the little things start to dip down. Hopefully it never gets all the way into the ball at the bottom. That would be really cold. But again, if I put anything in my notes, a thermometer measures air temperature. A thermometer, I'm not opening up the board to type. A thermometer measures air temperature when it's right there. A thermometer measures air temperature. Why would it be important to know the air temperature outside as it relates to weather, Grace? Yeah, I mean, if there's 100% chance of precipitation, rain, sleet, snow, and hail, if there's 100% chance it's going to do something outside, and it's 50 degrees, are we coming to school? Yeah, why? Why are we coming to school if it's 50 degrees and we know there's a 100% chance of precipitation? Addie? There you go. So if it's above 32, we're probably coming, right? However, 100% chance of precipitation, and they're calling for inches of precipitation, and it's 20 degrees. Probably not going to be here, right? Because they're going to treat the roads, and we know it's going to snow. So there you go. Why is it important to know what the temperature is outside? Well, number one, so you know what to wear for the day, right? There's a certain temperature that it reaches. And it's like, yeah, I don't think I'm wearing my hoodie and like my thick sweatpants today. It's supposed to be 85 outside. Probably going to get some shorts on, right? So again, a thermometer measures the air temperature. Yes, ma'am. Yes, at different times of the year, doors and houses can expand and contract, and it can make it very difficult to shut doors at some times. Absolutely. Everything expands and contracts, man. And if like certain things in your house, also depending on humidity and things, can expand and contract, and it can make things harder to close. All right. Anybody need more time for thermometer? All right, we're going to move on. If you were to put a star beside anything, Aubrey, it would be this instrument here. I mentioned it during our Fast and the Curious. The barometer is probably the number one instrument that we're going to look at, and it's going to play the most pivotal role in anything that we do when we talk about weather. Look at it. I mean, this is the low side. Over here is the high side. Like we said, with that big red L, you're going to have rainy, possibly stormy weather. With that giant blue H, fair, clear, cool, and sunny weather. I know it's weird. You want to say that H means it's hot, but that H on the weather map is blue. It's blue for a reason. When the barometer is high, that means the air up above us is pushing down us with even more force than normal, causing us to have high pressure. When it is not pressing down on us as much, and the air is usually kind of moving up, it's pulling in more warm air, and you're going to have low pressure, and you're going to have that rain and storm. So barometer. A barometer measures the high pressure. I'm going to be very honest with you. You don't have to write this word for word, but pretty much everything on here is important. A barometer measures air pressure. I think I would most definitely write that. Right? A barometer measures air pressure. That is important to write. I don't know that I need to write down it tells you whether the pressure is rising and falling, but I definitely think you should write everything about high pressures associated with quote-unquote happy weather. I know some of us in here, when it's rainy outside, you're probably happier than when it's sunny outside. I'm not taking anything away from it. I know that rainy days are important, but just to help us remember, just think of it in terms of recess. Are we going outside if it's clear, cool, and sunny? Yes, that makes everybody happy. If we're not going outside, it's kind of lousy, because it's going to be rainy, and that's why I use those words. So again, don't think that it's a negative outlook on rain. Yes, we absolutely need rain outside, and some people enjoy those days more than they do the high pressure days. But that's just an easy way for us to remember it. And a barometer measures all of that for us. This one, I think, is about as self-explanatory as the thermometer. It is a rain gauge. Guess what you measure with a rain gauge? Rain. How much it rained. A rain gauge measures the amount of rain that has fallen over a specific time period. The only thing I will say about that is if you have a rain gauge, Jackson, you kind of need to check it daily. And you really should check it about the same time, right? Because I can't check it on Monday and then leave it sitting there, and then come back on Friday and be like, oh, it rains this much on Friday. Well, what about what happened on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday? Now, if I know it didn't rain at all, and I don't have to go outside and empty it, fine. But, like, you kind of need to look at it on a daily basis to just see what's going on. And you'll notice we will go outside, we will get the rain gauge, we will look at it, we will measure what's going on inside of it on a daily basis at roughly the same time. So a rain gauge measures how much it's rained, and we usually measure that in inches, and then we'll have to get into some decimals and stuff as well with that, because it's not always going to rain exactly 1 inch. All right, so to move on from the wind vane / weather vane, that obviously, as you look at it, measures the wind direction, kind of obvious with the northeast, south, and west down there. We're going to move on to this thing. Now, there we go. Thank goodness it's on the right part of the screen now. Now, I notice at the top, that there is a wind vane. It is pointing in the direction that the wind is blowing, correct? The very, very top, this little thing almost looks like an airplane with no wings. But this thing here with the spinning cups, there might be days that the cups aren't spinning at all. There might be days when the cups are spinning very slowly. There might be days when those cups are spinning very quickly, because an anemometer measures what? How fast the wind is blowing. An anemometer is going to measure how fast the wind is blowing. So you could say it as an anemometer measures wind speed. I do not need you to write down that the cups catch the wind, turning the dial to show the wind speed. That is what it is. I know that I used to have anemometers, but I do not currently have any anemometers, except for the one that's on top of that weather station that we hopefully can put on top of the school very soon. An anemometer measures wind speed. All right, so if we move on from the anemometer, we're going to move to a weather map. A weather map. Who's seen a weather map on TV before when the people are doing the weather? All right. Weather map. I'm going to be honest with you. Don't write all this stuff on here. Indicating the atmospheric conditions above a large portion of the Earth's surface. Like, weather maps change this to show weather above a large portion of Earth's surface. They show weather above a large portion of Earth's surface. I might put that on here for us, though. All right, this is a hygrometer. Shh. This is a hygrometer. Looking at this, can you understand why somebody might get this a little bit confused with a barometer? Yeah. Sure, it's a round instrument that's got an arrow in the middle. Except this one just has percent down here. It has nothing about stormy over here and clear over here, because a hygrometer measures the humidity. I would write a hygrometer measures the humidity. If you don't understand the word humidity, also write the amount of moisture in the air, just in case you don't understand that. A hygrometer is going to measure the amount of moisture in the air. Obviously, hot summer days, you have more evaporation, which puts more moisture in the air. Cool days in the winter, you're not usually going to have very high humidity. Summer times, yes, I feel like the humidity stays up all the time.